As the Mayor Pro Tem of the Town of Clayton, I call this May 5th meeting to order. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, first and foremost, we thank you, Father God, for letting us be here today, dear Lord. As we go about the business of the town, Father God, let us continue to be unto you, dear Lord, in everything we say and everything that we do, dear Lord. It is in your Son, Jesus' name, we pray. Let everyone say, amen. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Excuse me. Yes, the only adjustment will be that we will not need a closed session this evening.
Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to the consent agenda, can I get a motion on it?
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving right along, first item on the agenda is administrative. Clayton, for you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, Council. Tonight, we're going to be bringing you another episode of Clayton for You. Tonight's episode is our first feature of the Animal Control Division and dealing with wildlife, especially this time of year.
As the weather warms up and we step into spring, there are a few things to keep in mind when encountering animals. In this episode of Clayton for You, we're talking about wildlife activity and what you should do if you come across wild animals this season.
Spring and summer bring a surge of new life as wildlife raise new offspring. Every species has its own way of caring for their young, methods that may seem unusual to us, but have helped them survive for thousands of years. If you find an animal that looks abandoned, do not touch it. Many species leave their young alone for hours while gathering food or to teach important survival skills. Interfering, even with good intentions, can actually put them and you in danger. In most cases, the parents will return, sometimes watching from a distance. Some may even defend their young by attacking perceived threats, including people. If you suspect that an animal is truly abandoned, the best thing to do is to keep your distance and call the town's animal control at 919-553-4611. We can assess the situation and, if needed, work with animal rehabilitators to ensure the animals get proper care.
By understanding and respecting wildlife, we help keep both animals and our community safe. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow Clayton for You for more town updates.
Nathaniel, another good job by you and your team. I think what we envisioned for Clayton for You, or Clayton 101 at one time, has come to fruition. So really appreciate another good job to add to the library. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Moving right along, we have several proclamations. The first one, Councilmember Anderson.
My pleasure to do the Town of Clayton. There you go. Thank you. Town of Clayton National Police Week proclamation. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Clayton Police Department. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and have been killed in the line of duty, including Patrol Officer Charles Lee, Patrol Officer Ray Gilmore, and a good friend of mine, Lieutenant Monica Carey, who honorably served as members of the Clayton Police Department. And whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., and whereas in 2025, the names of 345 officers killed in the line of duty were added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, including 148 officers who were killed during 2024. And whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 37th Candlelight Vigil on the evening of May 13th. And whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Clayton Town Council, we observe May 11th through May 17th as National Police Week and publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our communities and in communities across the nation, proclaimed by the Clayton Town Council on this 5th day of May 2025. And if you folks could come down front to get your picture taken, that would be great. And if we could give them a standing ovation.
Thank you. All right. Big smiles. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Let's give them another round of applause. Appreciate everything they do. Next on the agenda, we have Building Safety Month proclamation by Councilmember Casey.
Thank you. Town of Clayton Building Safety Month proclamation. Whereas the town of Clayton is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on safety and essential role of our homes, buildings, and infrastructure, and whereas our confidence in these structures that make up our community is achieved through building and fire prevention officials and others in the construction industry who work to ensure the safe construction of buildings, and whereas these officials are members of the International Code Council that brings together local and state officials who are experts and implement the codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the role of our community's local code officials who assure us of safe and sustainable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Game On, the theme for Building Safety Month 2025, encourages all to get involved and raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the service provided by our local building and fire officials in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Clayton Town Council, we hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, we encourage our citizens to join us as we observe Building Safety Month, proclaimed by the Clayton Town Council this 5th day of May 2025, signed Mayor Pro Tem Sims. And at this point in time, I'd like to ask the Inspections Department to please come up and let's get a picture taken, okay? Thank you.
All right, big smiles. Perfect, guys. Thank you.
All right, let's get a round of applause. Next, we have economic development by Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Sims. Good evening. Town of Clayton Economic Development Week proclamation. Whereas economic developers promote economic well-being and quality of life for their communities by creating, retaining, and expanding jobs that facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas economic developers are encouraged, engage in a wide variety of settings, including rural and urban, local, state, and federal governments, public-private partnership, chambers of commerce, colleges, universities, and a variety of other institutions. And whereas economic developers engage in a wide variety of activities to facilitate the growth and well-being of their communities, working across jurisdictions, departments, and disciplines. And whereas economic developers attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, nurture their downtowns and neighborhoods, and improve the quality of life in the town and regions. And whereas the town of Clayton first established its economic development department in 2018, recognizing the importance of fostering a strong and stable local economy through strategic planning, business attraction and retention, and community engagement initiatives designed to enhance the town's economic vitality and quality of life for all residents. Now, therefore, on behalf of the Clayton Town Council, we hereby proclaim the week of May 12th through May 16, 2025 as Economic Development Week, and remind individuals of the importance of this community celebration, which supports expanding career opportunities and making lives better. Proclaimed by the Clayton Town Council this 5th day of May 2025, Michael Sims, Mayor Pro Tem. This time we're asking those that with the economic development would please meet me down for a picture.
Look at there, you just came on, you're already getting awards. You just came on, you're already getting awards.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's get a round of applause. All right, next on the list, we have Town of Clayton Proclamation, 56th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is a time-honored and essential part of local government, serving communities throughout the world. And whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is one of the oldest public service positions, integral to the foundation and continual of the local governance. And whereas professional municipal clerks provide a vital link between citizens, local governing bodies, and various agencies at all levels of government. And whereas professional municipal clerks are committed to upholding principles of neutrality, impartiality, and equal service to all members of the community. And whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks serve as information hubs for local government operations, community affairs. And whereas professional municipal clerks continuously strive to enhance the administration of their office by actively participating in educational programs, professional development opportunities, and annual conferences of their state, county, and international association. And whereas it's fitting to recognize and celebrate the significant contributions accomplished by professional municipal clerks, now therefore, on behalf of Clayton Town Council, we hereby proclaim the week of May 4th through May 10th as Professional Municipal Clerks Week and extend appreciation to our town clerk, Heidi Holland, and Deputy Town Clerk Samantha Johnson Phillips, along with all professional municipal clerks for their invaluable service and steadfast dedication to the communities they serve. Proclaim the Town of Clayton Council this 5th day of May, 2025, Mike Sims, Mayor Pro Tem. Let's give him a round of applause. And if I can have them come down front for a quick picture. All right, thank you. So moving right on to old business. And bring up to 2024-27 Amelia Church Town Homes. This is a continuation from February 17, 2025, March 17, 2025, and April 21st, 2025 meeting. The public hearing has been closed. With that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Conrad, our planning director.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. Conrad Olmedo, Planning Director. Before you is an item that is already had its public hearing and has had some presentations before Town Council. We were able to meet with the applicants following our February 17th council meeting, where the item was tabled at the 17th of March meeting, again at the 21st meeting, and we had a technical review committee meeting. And what you have here is an update to the concept plan and the conditions of approval. So I'd like to run through that as well. In brief, this was reviewed by the planning board on the 17th of December, 2024. It's been brought to council and staff has had discussions with the applicants, but for reference, the property is located on Amelia Church Road on south of Short Johnson Road. You can see the location right there. The rezoning will be from OFI to conditional zoning residential. The gross density is 8.72 units per acre, and there are 173 single-family attached townhome units that are being proposed. The future land use map is currently medium-density residential. It's adjacent to some high-density residential as well. So should this be approved, we would need to update our comprehensive future land use map to align with the density for this project. This property was noticed in accordance with the North Carolina general statutes for public hearings. Property owners were mailed, the property was posted and was legally advertised in a local newspaper circulation. This is the latest version of the concept plan that was submitted to staff after the technical review committee had its meeting with the applicants. I wanted to highlight some of the changes that you'll note. The applicant will also be able to provide you with some more details. There is a change in the type C in the buffer, the perimeter buffer adjacent to the residential districts that are lower density to a type C buffer of 20 foot with a 10-foot reduction because of a fence being provided. There are also some alley-loaded dwelling units that are being provided, as noted on the concept plan, and some additional on-street parking is also being provided by adjusting the curb and gutter further inwards towards the property on that bottom right area. No changes made to these cross sections. The architectural changes include conceptual building elevation there, of course, some alley loaded units. There's also some vertical and horizontal roof modulation that they are proposing in terms of there's a number of inches in there in the conditions we'll go over. And so this sheet has also been updated with the concept plan document. The conditions of approval are, I've included these in the presentation. In your packet, you will notice that there are documents that indicate the changes as a comparison from what was reviewed at your last council meeting to what is currently. I did not include that as for the presentation that's in the packet for a reference. I think on this slide, what I'd like to do is point out some of those that come to my mind as far as being changed. That condition number 6 is regarding the mass grading. That was included, removed, but then added again. So that would exempt this project from having to provide double the width and double the number of vegetation for the project per the UDO. This condition 7, it pretty much outlines the perimeter buffer type C and outlines the linear foot and the number of trees that will be planted per linear foot, as well as the shrubs, so canopy, understory, and shrubbery. Also indicates that the common space will be maintained by the HOA. Condition number 8, again, it gives us the minimum width here of the 18 foot. Really not too many changes here that I can remember. Other than the parking area is not going to be publicly dedicated, but will be in common area managed by the HOA. So in the middle of the project, there is a private parking lot that will be included. Condition 9 talks about the open space. In condition 9C, there's an example of what kind of sports courts. Council had asked for some details of what amenities would be provided. So they've included the addition of pickleball, some pickleball courts. Condition 10, 11, and 12, pretty much condition 12 discusses the architectural elevations and the concept plan refers to that. No other significant changes to these conditions. Condition 13 does talk about the architectural standards. Some clarification about the relocation of that condition 13D for the townhome units to be a maximum of 7 units per block. Moving on here, you can note condition J talks about the modulation. So there was some discussion at the last council meeting how to vary the buildings, 1-story, 2-story, 3-story. The applicants provided a staggering of 12 inches and vertically a staggering of 12 inches from the adjacent units within the building to have some of that difference in roof elevation. Furthermore, there is some discussion or commitment to the different types of architectural materials that will be used on the site. Staff did provide some comments to the conditions with respect to these items, and this is a result of that conversation. For example, letter O with regards to the covered front porch. Staff had provided some guidance in terms of providing a minimum square foot area. The product and the applicant were not able to accommodate that minimum size, but it's something perhaps for further discussion. There's no requirement to provide a minimum square footage in the UDO. This would be purely an ability to provide that with the design of this product. In addition to this condition is number 20, where it pretty much resolves any prior existing approvals for the site. So number 20 says that the applicant will agree to file documentation with the courts. This is regarding the prior special use permit for the site where there were some apartments already approved. This was some of the discussion that we had with the planning board and some of the outcomes of that. For the most part, these items have been addressed in the conditions of approval and the subsequent concept plan. Some of the town council discussion points that were had at the meeting. Oops, I think I just lost the screen there. There we go, back on, thank you. Was some discussion about alley-loaded units. The applicant has provided some additional units that are alley-loaded. Discussion about providing on-street parking. Those were also provided. Some architectural standards. Roof modulation has been provided with staggering. So projection of the buildings as well as some of the height up to 12 inches in height and 24 inches in the horizontal staggering. Some clarity with regards to the amenities. No direct changes with regards to mass grading, but the project is now conforming to the UDO requirement of providing that type C perimeter buffer. Following council's meeting, staff and the applicants had some discussion. We had a technical review committee where staff was able to review the revised concept plan and the conditions of approval. We did provide some comments. I would consider these as they were identified as recommendations for the project to help guide the project towards an outcome that staff felt would be in better alignment with what town council had directed or advised. These are recommendations, so these are not technical items that would hold the project from coming before town council. So they included some additional consideration for some additional alley-loaded units, increasing opportunities for additional parallel parking, discussion about having a minimum size for a front porch in those alley-loaded units. With regards to the conditions of approval, the condition number 4, which was removed via discussion with the applicant, staff feels that this condition could add some of the clarification with regards to potential state legislation that might be coming forward. But nonetheless, it should be noted that should this concept plan be requested to be vesting with the Unified Development Ordinance as it is right now, that a site-specific vesting plan would have to be submitted. Condition 15 was a minor technical change from a may to a shall, and it is now a will provide, just some of the clarification there. And again, referring number 13 with regards to the front covered porch. These were recommendations from staff, which the applicant did consider. Coming back to the consideration, the planning board did recommend approval. In your consistency motion statement, it would be inconsistent with the future land use map, but recommending approval. And staff does also align with that recommendation and is recommending that council move forward with an approval, albeit inconsistent with the 2045 comprehensive growth plan. And the ordinance does allow for staff to update that future land use map if approved. I know the applicant is available for their presentation, but I'm available if there's any questions about my presentation and the content therein.
Councilwoman Archer.
Thank you for that presentation. That was very helpful. Could you back up a couple of slides? There was a will versus a shall in there that I missed. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Conrad, for that presentation. Kind of to Councilwoman Archer's point on this, what you're seeing on the screen right here, now the concept plan, alley loaded units, I mean, is that something that, are they agreeing to conditionally increase, or is that something that they just might consider? I'm trying to understand what they're willing to consider, or what they are going to make a condition versus what they may consider as a condition.
So that was, I'll go back to the concept plan. And to confirm, these were comments from staff following the technical review committee. So these were staff's comments back to the applicant.
Okay, and what was the response from the applicant on those, regarding those?
So the the concept plan that was provided does have, this is the concept plan, and the conditions of approval do align with this concept plan. So the alley loaded units were provided, I've got those alley loaded dwelling units. I don't have a pointer, but you can see on the far right there's building 72 through 85, and there's open space in the middle therein. So it was recommended to see if there was an opportunity to have that block, that area also be provided with alley loaded units. But the applicants have provided the alley loaded units along the other two, which you would consider blocks. So the one that's directly north of the amenity or the mail kiosk area, and then to the left of that, which that block of units is alley loaded as well. So, and in terms of the discussion with staff, we were advising them to increase the number, and so that could have increased it by, I think 14 additional units.
Okay, but none of that is being conditionalized in
Correct.
this. Okay. Could you go back to that slide then? Because I just want to, if you don't mind, please. Okay. And then just for, I mean, I've kind of, there's multiple iterations of the conditions on here regarding the masquerading, which was one of the topic points prior meeting. That's still a condition on here regarding the masquerading, but so they're still asking for a reprieve on the buffer.
Correct.
On that. Okay. Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Anybody else? Did the applicant want to?
Yeah. I'll get their PowerPoint ready.
Yeah, you should put a presentation. There you go. Thank you. And just click it. Okay. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Sims and members of the Town Council. Let me start first by thanking Mr. Almeida for his presentation. My name is Neil Ghosh. I'm an attorney at the Morningstar Law Group at 700 West Main Street in Durham, and I'm here representing the developer and applicant, which is Tribute Companies, for this project. With me tonight are Mr. Mark Maynard, who's with the developer, and also Mr. Dan Danvers, who's working on the civil side for this project. I know I'm a new face to an old project, which you all heard a few months back in March. So I hope I won't be too repetitive, but if I am, I ask that you bear with me. I know you might have heard some of this before. I think you all know that this project's been reviewed by staff a number of times. So all aspects of the project have been thoroughly vetted. I do want to go, I don't want to go over all the basics, but based on my review of the last hearing, I think there are a few things that are worth addressing head on. There were some discussions about mass grading, and maybe more specifically, the boundary buffers associated with the project. I want to first start by saying that it's my understanding that the project is not utilizing mass grading. Yes, it's true the site will be cleared as part of the development process, but clearing is different than grading. And secondly, I think many of you know the site currently has a development entitlement pursuant to a special use permit, and I think it's worth comparing what the current entitlements are and what that entails, and what was proposed at the last hearing in March, and what where we've ended up tonight. The slide I have up here focuses on what was proposed in March and what is proposed now. So to keep it simple, we've not changed the width of the buffer, so I think that's the easiest way to explain it. You can see the various widths on the slide there. 20-foot street yards on our street frontages, a small section of a 10-foot wide type A against the existing apartments, and everywhere else it's a 20-foot buffer. Last month, or in March rather, those 20-foot buffers were proposed as type B buffers, and we've upgraded them to type C buffers. The primary difference between type B and type C buffers is the amount of planting required. Type C buffers, which are what we are now committing to, require about 33% more of every scheduled plant material. So that's about 30 more canopy trees, 30 more understory trees, and something like 300 more shrubs. in raw numbers, which is a significant increase. And in addition to all of that increased plant material, we also have added an opaque privacy fence. So these buffers are much more robust than what you saw last time. And importantly, these buffers also are a lot larger than what the current special use permit project requires. From what I was able to pull from records, all of those 20-foot buffers, not the street yards, but the 20-foot buffers were 10-foot wide in certain areas and no more than 15 feet wide elsewhere. And they were type B buffers, no fence. So, well, hold on, I'm sorry. I kind of tried to illustrate it there, where those buffers are a little bit different on the SUP project, which has more units, but evidently less robust buffers and less plant material. So it seems that the proposed project is, in a sense, better on both accounts. Next, I did want to touch on parking. The proposed plan provides each unit with the ability to park 2 cars, not including within any of the garages. And of course, the units do have garages. So that's a minimum of 2 parking spaces for each unit outside the garage, and then whatever space they leave in the garage for cars. In March, we also had 44 guest spaces shown on the plan. It was pointed out that there were no guest spaces convenient to the southeast portion of the site. And as a result, we've redesigned the site, that section specifically, to include 9 guest parking spaces. So that brings us to a total of, I believe, 53 guest spaces spread throughout the community. And that's substantially more than is required for the SUP project, which per the conditions of approval requires only 25 additional spaces for, again, a larger development. So I think, again, the proposed project here outperforms that which is already entitled. I also wanted to touch on the alley-loaded product. In March, we did show on the site plan some alley-loaded sections, but there was a question about the elevation for that product type, and I don't think we had that readily available. This slide shows the various elevation concepts. So over here, we have the fronts and backs of the alley-loaded product. Here, rather. You can see on the front elevations, they're staggered back and forth, and also the roofs undulate between the units, so you don't get that one appearance of like one mass roof, uniform roof. On the rears, you can see they do have some architectural treatments, but the main architectural components, I believe, are on the front. You can also see off-street exterior parking paths in front of each garage. And here again, you have the staggering of the elevations front to back, even on the rear. And you can see some of the front load product concept. I think that looks pretty typical of what you would expect. One nice thing, though, as you can see from the rear elevations, is how these products back up to and basically frame the outdoor gathering area, which I think is a pretty nice layout, and encourages those types of interactions that ultimately turn a subdivision into a community. Finally, there was some discussion about the amenity package. I think in March, we were contemplating trails, mail kiosk, dog park, and some gathering or picnic area. We had not fully designed it, but we have now also added, as was mentioned, a text commitment to include a sports court as part of the amenity package. The previous project with the SUP was, of course, a rental community. So naturally, that had a leasing office, which was able to house a more robust amenity package for a larger development. Unfortunately, the economics of a pool and clubhouse for a smaller ownership community tend to weigh against having a substantial upkeep item like a pool or clubhouse. But we do recognize that a robust amenity package is warranted nonetheless. We just want to deliver that in a way that's not going to become a financial burden on the HOA. Ultimately, I think this is a thoughtful redesign of the property in a way that better serves Clayton, and which will be more compatible with the surrounding area than what the current entitlement under the SUP or special use permit allows. With the Amelia Station Apartments just to the north, there arguably are enough rental units in the area. The project is less dense than the SUP project and provides important ownership opportunities. And with the recent changes, there really is no doubt that this project is better than what the SUP allows. It's got better buffers, more guest parking, it's a different product type, and it's better coordinated with the growth Clayton is experiencing. So I want to thank you for your time tonight. We're excited about the project, and we hope to have your support. Our team is available to answer any questions you may have, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant? Councilman Casey.
So you made the comment about masquerading
Yes.
Are they going to bring any soil in for this project? Are they using any heavy machinery? I mean, I'm trying to understand, I
Well,
guess.
the project will be graded, yeah, absolutely. So I don't know that they're planning on bringing soil in, but, you know, generally speaking, they will balance the site to allow for development, but that's going to be a matter of cut and fill from existing high spaces on the property and then using that dirt to fill lower spaces on the property.
Okay. So I'm sorry, say that last sentence again.
So essentially, they'll cut high spaces on the property and use that dirt on site to fill lower spaces in the property so that they can create the building pad that they want to develop on and also contour the property for stormwater.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I may have another question, but if anybody else has anything in the meantime.
Councilwoman Andrew?
Sure. Thank you for the presentation. Just to kind of summarize again in my own terms for people who are seeing this application now and maybe didn't quite catch the history. So this site has an approved development plan that includes the quad style. I think they're multifamily dwellings and the other parameters that you had in the table. So that's already approved, could be built today. And then we heard this new application for the same site just a couple months ago. And the proposal, the revisions you're bringing back today are from that hearing. So I just wanted to clarify for people who have had an interest in following along kind of where we're at in this process. So there were a couple of things that I wanted to mention that I appreciated seeing. And so first, adding that parking to the southeast portion of the development is very helpful. The rear loaded units, that looks a lot nicer, I think, for that area. Increasing the number of the plantings, and as you mentioned, in those buffers, I think is also helpful. I like the clarity about the elevation styles. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute here, but I also appreciate not counting the garage as a parking space. So all of that was great for me. There was one edit I was going to request in the site data table. It mentions that the bike rack would be located at the clubhouse. And just for clarity, so that there's not an issue moving forward, if we could clarify where that bike rack is going to be located.
Well, there is no clubhouse, so I think that's a really fair question. And I'm going to ask Dan if he could provide some clarity on that, or maybe I can just. So it'd be centralized with the mail kiosk.
Okay, so if we could make that revision, is that something you're agreeable to? Just for
Absolutely.
clarity down the road. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I also had a question about the one dumpster location. I understand that it's going to be a private waste removal utility. I just know from personal experience in town, I was in a subdivision the other day and I counted 75 units that were contributing to 2 dumpsters. And even with that volume going into 2 dumpsters, there are sometimes issues. So just kind of looking at livability in the community, just imagining myself, you know, what if I was down there in lot 61 and my nearest dumpster is, you know, all the way to the northwestern part of the property. I just wondered if you had any insights on that.
So I can't speak to the other community. It is, so a dumpster location does require, obviously, the ability to be accessed by the appropriate apparatus, right? So they're kind of difficult to put maybe everywhere. But I do think that the frequency of pickup does make a difference in, let's say, how junky that area ultimately appears. And I would hope that we would be able to accommodate whatever the need is as it's on the ground in that one location by increasing the frequency of pickup if that's necessary.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. And if there is something in code or some kind of condition we could contribute there, would that be feasible, or is this just like a completely off the table topic? I guess it's just a concern of mine thinking of that number of people going into one dumpster and how often it's going to get cleaned up. I only bring it up to be such a stickler is just because how many times I've seen it is an issue elsewhere.
So it's not something that we've talked about specifically, and I'm happy to go talk with my client about it. More so what I was saying is I doubt that we could fit another location.
Right.
Whether we could fit more dumpsters in the current location, I think, is a different question that is worth exploring. And I just don't know the answer off the top of my head. It's not something we've talked about ahead of time.
Okay, we can circle back to that one. Let's see, there is in condition 13J, where we're talking about that modulation, and then it lists the 3 different types of modulation, and it includes an or with each type. I wondered if in the leading sentence, if it could include a shall. So in other words, modulation shall include one of the following. I noticed that in that particular sentence, it doesn't have that directive kind of verb in there. And I know later on when these things start to go on the ground, that could create issues.
I don't have the language in front of me. My recollection is specifically, like that's where it's supposed to be. So modulation, it essentially says modulation means this, or this.
Okay.
Right? That's how the condition is supposed to be written.
Okay, then that's fine, as long as that is clear enough for staff to,
If you have it handy, I think we can talk about that. This is what we talked about. Yeah. Thirteen. Yeah, 13J.
Okay. Maybe I had it wrong. I thought it, 13J, yeah.
So it should say modulation shall include ABC.
That's what I was requesting, if possible. Thank you.
That's what I thought we put.
Okay,
So,
well, good. Then we're on the same page on that. I promise I'm coming to the end of my list here. Just a couple more
all
things.
good. All good.
Similarly, condition 19 has some language. So I understand that the new utilities will be undergrounded, which is great. However, it just says something about, they're strongly encouraged for existing utilities. Obviously, I'm sure we can all understand why the wording was done that way. Is there any way to go ahead and just committing to undergrounding those utilities there to leave that ambiguity out of that condition?
No, so we can't make that commitment because they're not our utilities and we don't necessarily control where they go. This condition, this concept appeared previously in 2 different conditions and they were written differently from each other. Okay. So we took the language, we kind of tried to make them into one condition, but the idea is that we will work with the utility, Duke, to see if they will allow us to put them underground.
Okay, I understand. That makes sense. The last thing then, I did want to revisit this issue of the covered front porch area or stoop. And, just kind of looking at the overall site plan, I mean, it's a fairly dense development. And I was just imagining that if I was living there, I would probably really appreciate having that covered stoop. I understand the desire to maybe not want to commit to a certain size stoop, but I wondered if instead of just 70%, could it just be that we guarantee that all the houses would have a covered stoop so that they have a place to sit at their house?
Let me check with my client real quick.
Sure.
All right. I think there is some confusion about what this feedback was related to earlier. I believe, our understanding was it's related to the alley loaded product, which we could definitely commit to doing 100% of the alley loaded product having a covered front porch. With respect, if you're asking with respect to all of the homes, I think that's where we had committed to 70%. I think that's where we had committed to 70% of the units having a covered porch. And I'm, I guess I would say we could certainly commit to having 100% of the alley loaded having a covered porch if that's, I think that's kind of how we understood the feedback originally, because we were talking about alley loaded product.
Yeah, I see. Maybe we could go back to that condition. Sorry, Conrad, I know I'm having you play musical chairs over there. Could we look at condition, I believe it's 13O?
Yeah, so minimum of 70% of all residential units shall have a covered front porch or stoop.
Okay, and so I'm just curious. So you said 100% of rear loaded, that would be fine to clarify that there? At 100%
Yeah,
of the rear loaded?
I think we could add language that, including at a minimum 100% of the rear loaded, or I'm sorry, alley loaded product.
Alley loaded. Okay. Yeah, I was just, where did the 70% come from? Is there a design reason why someone wouldn't have a covered stoop?
It can depend on like where the end unit is and what that looks like. So I think generally, I mean, some units are bigger than others, right? And then the way they're positioned on the lot can, I would say it's essentially 100%, but there is a possibility that some of them won't.
I see.
Because of where they fall on the site plan. But the concept is to have a covered front porch or patio for each home. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. That concludes my question. Thank you.
I've got a question. So I want to circle back to the dumpster issue that the councilwoman mentioned.
Oh, yes.
So is it possible to attach a compactor to this dumpster? I mean, I've seen subdivisions that have dumpsters with compactors, and it reduces the amount of overspill in a dumpster.
I'm going to need to confer with my client on it. The dumpster issue wasn't one that we talked about, or wasn't one that I talked about with my client ahead of this hearing. So I appreciate you circling back to it because it's something that I left incomplete. If I could just take a moment, I'll talk with the team about that. Okay. So here's what I've learned. Previously, the site was designed, as a rental community. So the dumpster area actually is large enough, we believe, to fit a compactor. However, it is switched to an ownership model as opposed to rental. If it were a rental community, generally they would put a compactor in. Compactor, again, is a HOA maintenance item for an ownership situation. So the idea here was to have a regular dumpster and then to allow with the privately contracted waste management rollout carts for the community. So the dumpster would be, I believe, in addition to rollout carts with the private trash contractor, and I guess I would say there is space and ability to maybe fit a compactor, but it wasn't, I guess the developer is uncomfortable deciding that for the HOA because it would ultimately be a long-term maintenance item for the HOA.
You're saying they're going to have rollouts with
with the private contractor.
I did not understand that. Okay.
I didn't either. So
And the dumpsters I've seen are dumpsters with a compactor attached to the dumpster, so it pushes things in. And I understand what you're saying, but I know a lot of developers have made that decision for homeowners in a homeowners association so that it helps keep that area cleaner. But
understood.
Councilman Casey.
Do you have the transportation plan back from April 2024 available, or?
I don't have it handy on my slides.
Are you aware of it? Or your group?
The transportation plan
the transportation study. I'm sorry, transportation study for this particular project. Transportation study plan for this project.
I mean, it's not something I've reviewed.
Okay. I was looking at that one, and I kind of, obviously, those are always important to look at from our perspective because transportation is always a big issue. But one of the things that I noted on that, the site plan is way different than the site plan that's being shown and presented. Is there a reason why the site plan was such a different? There was a lot more amenities, same number of houses. Not sure if, I don't know if it's possible to pull it up. It was in the agenda packet, but.
We can pull it up, but generally speaking, if the TIA was more conservative than what they are actually proposing here now, so for example, more units, more intense amenities, and those are studied,
Yeah.
then you would be fine as long as all your entry and exit points, which they are, remain the same.
Yeah, and honestly, no, I appreciate that. It wasn't really about the transportation study itself, other than the site plan. Just is very, there's a stark, yeah. So there you've got, that's the site plan that, I didn't know, I was kind of confused. I mean, there's obviously a lot of things that were shaved off of this particular proposal versus what was on that transportation study.
Okay, yeah, so I think this plan does show more amenities, but as I mentioned earlier, we had eliminated the pool and clubhouse amenity because of the, well, essentially the upkeep for the HOA and the HOA dues. So this plan, I think, is, I mean, it's an older plan, obviously, but it does, you're correct, it has more amenities, but I do think that the number of units, which I don't see listed.
It's 173. If you look right next to that pool, you have kind of the.
Yeah, so I mean, I get that. Yeah, the point I was making is it's the same number of units. This one had more amenities, but ultimately there was a different decision. Well, a different reason for the decision to remove the pool and clubhouse amenities. It's essentially a cost of ownership decision.
Okay, thank you. The other question, which brought up a good point regarding the dumpster site. It's at that far corner. And so my concern is, if I live in that bottom right, I mean, seems like I have to travel pretty good ways. Is it not uncommon, or would it make sense to have multiple locations? Because I just could see that being not that I'm lazy, but I could just see, hey, I've got to go from all the way one section of the community all the way to the other to offload my trash. If I have a car, I'm not going to want to put the trash in my car necessarily, especially if it's leaking. So I don't know. Can you kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, sure. So it is pretty common to have a single location for the dumpster rather than multiple. But as I mentioned earlier, the site with the private waste contractor the owners are able to utilize individual bins at their unit for the trash. So the dumpster area would be kind of overflow. So on a daily basis, I don't expect that anybody is going to need to go to the dumpster to dump their trash. They will have a trash can, but potentially when people are moving in is when a lot of trash gets created, and in those times you might use the dumpster.
Yeah, that's true. And I noticed that, there's a car wash and dog wash station over there on this particular site plan. And I guess there would be a fence there too, because I know that's one of the other things that we get concerns about is the dumpsters kind of in that corner. So the people in the adjacent property, I know we have an issue with that on another development in town where it does overfill, pile up, creates a smell, odor and stuff. So anyway.
There's two things. The dumpster area is enclosed by fence, and then we also have added a fence to the project boundary buffer as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
One more thing. That condition number 4 that was removed,
Yeah.
the only reason I'm bringing it up, again, just thinking down the road, whoever goes to implement and act on these conditions. So I think the goal of that condition was this concern that this would be seen as a site-specific vesting plan. Which I just consider important for future people who, would be working on this project. Is there something about condition 4 that was troubling? Is there a way to rework it to make that clear about the vesting?
So the explanation given to us, ironically, I think is exactly the reason we would take it out, was because of uncertain changes at the state legislative level, which it's kind of hard to draft a condition when you don't know what the state law is going to be. We acknowledge that the concept plan is not a site-specific, I mean, we know we have to go through site plan if that's the question. So we understand that point, but I didn't quite understand the reason given for this condition. We don't know what the law is going to be, and neither does the town, right? But we do, I think, all have a sense that it's changing. But this condition, basically says any changes wouldn't be considered upzoning or downzoning. Well, I don't know if that's true. The law on that is fluid at the moment.
Gotcha. That makes sense. As long as, I guess, we're covered, right, that this is not a site-specific vesting plan. I guess that would be my only concern.
Is that worth asking our town attorney? Because, if the law's changed, then, could we not have that as one of the conditions? But if something changes, obviously, we have to.
I'll let our attorney answer the question about laws changing, but to answer to site-specific development, since it's a separate application and fee, they have not applied for it. It does go through the very same exact process as a rezoning, but they have not requested it. Therefore, no, it would not be part of this. That condition was really more getting at the heart at Senate Bill 382, whereas, under that recent legislation, we have to, if we wanted to modify, and say there was a use that junkyard was allowed today, not that it is, I'm just giving scenarios, and we wanted to remove that as a use, we could not do that unless we had owner's consent. And the request, would you consider basically allowing owner's consent? Is kind of the context behind it. But some of the other questions, I will let the attorney respond, but that was the context behind it.
I think that's a very comprehensive explanation. We're just trying to anticipate. Everybody is challenged with this change, this downzoning change, and we're just trying to anticipate how to address that. So it wasn't so much a not knowing what the law is going to be as it was a waiver of those changes.
Okay, I guess I'm just making sure that with the removal of that condition that we're covered how we need to be legally, or if there's a substitute that we could propose.
I don't anticipate a problem with this change.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that being said, again, the public hearing has been closed. I'm going to turn this over to council for deliberation. Councilwoman Andrea.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to clarify, so as I prepare a motion here, I took note of 3 changes, and so, if I could just run those by you. The first was an edit to update the word clubhouse to mail kiosk regarding the location of the bike rack.
Correct.
The second was condition 13, that modulation shall include one of the following.
Correct.
13J, my apologies. The third that I had was condition 13O, 100% of rear-loaded units will have a covered stoop.
Yes.
Okay. So were there other changes noted by the council? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Clarification. The 100% of the rear-loaded units is in addition to 70% of all units. Is that right?
That
That's
was my intention.
my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess we're in deliberation, right? We in deliberation?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I appreciate the applicant coming. I know this has been a long, arduous process. I was pretty insistent on during the last meeting, some things that I was not, I wanted to see changed. There were a few things that were modified and approved, and I appreciate that. The thing regarding the buffer, regarding the grading, mass grading, or however you want to classify it, there is an adjacent farm there, a legacy adjacent farm there that in the very inception, under the old format came, and the lady came and spoke about that and regarding the runoff and stormwater issues and stuff like that. I think that buffer condition, not asking for an exemption in our conditions here, just is, I'm not a fan of that. So I'm opposed to that. I know there was, some recommendation about the driveway width from 18 feet, from 20 feet. We're not willing to budge and wanted to keep it at 18 feet. The dumpster site, there were some good points made earlier that I don't feel like we got, maybe the considerations that we're asking for. So for me, I'm just, I would have to say right now I would vote no for this project based on those conditions. And I appreciate the ones that have been made, but this is a very dense site, as you can tell. If the numbers don't work, unfortunately, numbers don't work. That's not, our job is to do what we're supposed to do for the community and do what we think is for the best interest of the community. And so, I mean, it's a very dense site. I mean, there's some concessions that I feel like could potentially be made to allow for a little bit more space, another dumpster location or a compactor or whatever. And I know that's just not the will, so therefore I would just consider voting no on this project.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is there a motion? Hang on a second, we got another question.
In light of Councilmember Casey's comment, could I ask the applicant one more question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the concerns about stormwater and mass grading and erosion, I believe maybe in the last meeting with this application, we discussed some other erosion control measures, and I believe maybe double, am I saying it correctly, double silt fencing was mentioned. Is that something the applicant would be agreeable to on that boundary?
Honestly, I've reviewed the last hearing and I don't recall hearing that. However, yes, we can commit to doing double row of silt fencing for the stormwater and erosion control plans for construction.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
In terms of adding that as a condition, and let's see, and that was what you were agreeable to, adding that as a condition?
Yes.
Excellent.
Council, let me have a quick word of the applicant's counsel real quick.
Thank you.
So we good, Conrad?
So we are discussing how to incorporate the changes to the conditions of approval as council and the applicants are discussing, and seeing how we can best provide that to council. Either at this meeting may not be possible because of the modifications, but Neil, he's also had some discussion with the applicants.
Where we at?
Mayor Pro Tem, what we're doing is just trying to make make sure the conditions are clear and enforceable. And so I don't know if you want to just hold up a minute, or if you want to go on to something else while they work on that, and then we'll have some clearly stated conditions that can be approved or can be part of the motion.
We can hold up as long as, I don't know if this is going to require, I'd rather.
Well, the question was whether to delay this and draft them at the next, bring them back at the next meeting, or whether to try to go ahead and address them tonight.
Where we at?
I believe Ms. Tanner's going to offer a suggestion that we've talked about, and I don't want to misstate it, so I'll let her speak to it, but I think there's a way that we could commit to these changes tonight for a vote tonight, is the way I understood it.
So we are committing to the changes tonight? So we can put
I
this.
apologize. Can I get that repeated? I was having a sidebar conversation.
Yeah, so Conrad's going to summarize the changes really fast, so there can be a motion this evening. He's going through and capturing them. The one additional change is we were talking about, if these are privately owned, we do collect waste. And what I really needed to work out was, you have that private parking lot in the middle of it. Well, our waste carrier would tear up the private parking lot. So I wanted to make sure they were amenable to having a bare minimum of fire lane weight, because that can handle the weight of the trash truck, have that built through there. And they are amenable to that, so that he can kind of summarize some of the conditions as he's been tracking them, or revisions, so that a motion can be made, and then we can work on revising the conditions and getting them signed after the fact.
Okay, far away, Conrad.
Okay. So the conditions I have are an edit to the update on the concept plan for the clubhouse to refer to the mail kiosk. I have a condition on providing 100% of the rear-loaded units to have a covered porch or stoop. A condition for double silting of the fencing for erosion and control. The collecting of trash, maybe on a fire rated road, the town will coordinate the trash collection. I'm a little bit, maybe I can get some help on the trash collection, if that's going to be a frequency matter or if it's going to be.
That'll be handled in accordance to whatever town regulations. I think it's more of a matter of adding a condition that the private parking lot will be designed such to carry the weight of a trash vehicle. Example being fire lane, et cetera. We'll come up with something.
So then thank you. The condition that the private road lot be constructed to a fire rated road to allow for the passing of a trash vehicle, trash collection truck. Those are the 4 conditions, or the 3 conditions changes, and then 1 concept plan change that I've heard thus far.
And adding shall to the modulation.
Correct.
Paragraph.
Thank you.
Is that it? That's it, right? That's all 4. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to make a motion. I would like to approve the application inconsistent with the 2045 Comprehensive Growth Plan. While the request is inconsistent with the future land use map in the adopted 2045 Comprehensive Growth Plan, I move to approve this rezoning request in that the properties are designated as medium density residential in the future land use map. Policy LU 1.1 seeks to manage future growth and encourage quality development through the implementation of the comprehensive plan, the Unified Development Code, and other plans and regulations adopted by the Town Council. Policy LU 1.2 seeks to encourage developments which incorporate high-quality design and enhance the quality of life for existing and future residents of the town. Strategy LU 1.2.2 seeks to encourage high-quality design in residential projects. Goal M2 seeks to support interconnected street systems that efficiently disperse vehicular traffic. This action is reasonable and in the public interest in that the comprehensive growth plan encourages residential uses in this area. The request is compatible with existing zoning and land uses in the area.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign.
No.
Motion passed. Moving right along to staff reports. Town manager. 3-2. What's that?
I was trying to determine the vote. Maybe the clerk got it, but I didn't get the vote on that motion. So passed 3-2. Thank you.
That's true.
Town manager, so staff reports, town manager.
Yep, so real quick, at your seats, all of you should have a copy of the resolution that we'd like you to consider passing this evening. As many of you have been following, and we discussed several times last week, including at the City Vision Conference, or excuse me, was discussed several times at the City Vision Conference for the League of Municipalities last week. There are multiple bills that have been filed recently in both the Senate and the House side of the General Assembly in North Carolina that are really seeking to affect your all's ability to govern the land use and other utility-related regulations within the state of North Carolina. Over the last several years, we've spent a lot of time planning for what the future of Clayton would look like, preparing for what that would be, having opportunities like you just had with this current developer to have essentially negotiate the best that this community can get out of every development that's coming before us. Many of the requested changes that are happening at the General Assembly or that currently filed would effectively erode a lot of that ability for you all to do that. So with your permission, we'd like you to consider approving this resolution that we would then forward on to all of our representatives and senators at the General Assembly to make it clear that we oppose several of these bills and would like to see more of your all's ability to govern at the local level and decide the fate of our community. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions or other conversations.
Any comments on this or questions by council? Yes. Council.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I want to speak in opposition to this bill. Basically that's erosion of our local authority. Our communities are strongest when decisions are made by people who live here and who know our streets, schools, small businesses, and the values that define us. You can't basically mandate a one-size-fits-all approach when every community is different. So if you take the power away from the local level, and the people out here tonight, the citizens that are here, you lose your voice because we don't have a voice for you. So I adamantly ask that people speak out against these rules, these overarching legislation, and we need to stand in preserving the power at the local level and make sure we are continued to be governed locally. So thank you.
I agree with Councilman Porter. I would urge you to call your elected representatives and voice your feelings against this legislation. I know that people sometimes say that we have more than we need to say about development and what happens where. But I will tell you, without this thoughtful process about what needs to go where and where density needs to be focused, it's going to be a free-for-all, in my opinion. I've got builder and development experience, and you want a thoughtful process that has some controls and balances on what goes where. And without stepping on toes, I've lived here a long time, over 40 years, and what you would have if this passed is more of what 4042 looks like. There was not a lot of there were not a lot of planning in place where that happened. It was just subdivisions thrown out there, retail thrown out there with not a lot of thoughtfulness about how that's going to be configured. And if this legislation passes, you're going to have a lot of that thrown out into our county without a structure or a thought process behind it. So again, as Councilman Casey said, I would urge you to look at this bill and understand it. And if you feel like it is not a good thing for our communities, which we think it's not, reach out to your elected officials and voice your opinion.
So let me add my comments onto this. As Mayor Pro Tem, this bill 765 is atrocious. It's atrocious in the fact that what you just saw, whether you agreed or disagreed with this particular builder coming in and what they're going to put up, you saw a negotiation as far as what council was looking for and then what the builder was looking for, but we was able to come to some type of agreement. All that goes away. All that goes away. And basically what you're going to have is a wild, wild west, just wide open with the builders doing pretty much what they want. Right, wrong, or indifferent, it's still important for council members as representatives of the citizens to be able to have some type of voice. Again, and if you ever listen to me, I am all for building, but how we build is what's extremely important. That would be taken away. I urge you to get a hold of those that those representatives that might vote yes and tell them they need to vote no. With that being said, I'm going to ask for a motion that we vote to support this resolution.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
That's all my comments for the evening.
Thank you. Town attorney? Town clerk?
No report.
Under other staff, I have Ms. Ann Gaines and Craig Brown.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you, Nathaniel. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council and Leadership Group. About a month ago, I was at a meeting and the mayor requested that we look at the electric bill usage for the winter bills. So we've come back to you all with some information. There were 3 questions that came out of that meeting. The first were our electric bills higher? And if so, what was the reason? What key points of data did we use to better understand those issues? And were there recommended strategies that we were using? So the first question was, were the bills higher? Yes, they definitely were higher. This winter, January of 25, was the second coldest January in over 3 decades. 2018 was the coldest January. We had 2 major cold events. We had snow in January and February, and that definitely increased the likelihood that a customer was going to have back-to-back high utility bills. And you'll see in another chart that I have, we had an average of about 40 days across our billing cycles, all 4 of our billing cycles in January and February, where temperatures were below 32 degrees. And some days they didn't get above freezing. And then also the heating degree demand, day demand in January and February increased, and it outpaced even the winter of 2018. And really what that means is a degree-based day is the assumption that when the outside temperature is 65 degrees, we don't need heating or cooling. So we clearly had days that it was much cooler than 65. Question 2 was, were there key points of data which help us better to understand these issues? Absolutely. Overall consumption was up. January over February, consumption was up almost 23%. Compared to January of 24, consumption was up almost 1%. And then February of 24, February 25, consumption was up almost 20%. And again, what that relates to is average bills are up. So average bills were up about 20% January to February of this year. January of 24 compared to 25, they were up less than 1%. And then February of 24 to February 25, they were up 21%. So what this slide is, I want everybody to make sure you take some time to understand this. My staff really tries to use information like this to help our customers understand how heat pumps work. So in Clayton, like a lot of North Carolina towns, we rely on electric heat versus gas heat. We do have some customers who have availability of gas heat, but heat pumps are very efficient when the temperatures outside are 34 degrees and higher. When they're below 34 degrees, more than likely heat strips or auxiliary heat switches on a heat pump. And obviously, when we had the impact of the cold weather, that's going to mean that your heat strips are on longer, and heat strips are using 3 to 4 times the kWh as when just your electric heat is running. So again, that cold weather is driving that usage up and those bills up. We do use a lot of data to come up with this information. We collect it through the Power BI access that we have. We track utility trends, we track average bills and consumption. We look at consumption data, and we definitely look at seasonality and weather. And this is the slide I just wanted to make sure everybody is aware of. So we have 4 billing cycles in the town of Clayton, and this is kind of a look at the days that the weather was below 32 degrees for bills. And if you'll consistently see on the far right-hand side, every billing cycle had between 38 and 44 days of billings during the wintertime that were below 32 degrees. This slide is just showing you that obviously we have a more demand for electricity. Our demand for electricity in December was up 9.2%, 8.6% in January, and 25% in February. Again, that's going to equate to more demand is higher bills. Just again, a quick reminder that we have, this is a look back at our rates, our electric rates, base rates and kilowatt charge over the last 4 years. Wanted everybody to see that that has slightly changed. And again, this slide is strictly about the sale of electricity and what our revenues versus our expenses. If you'll see in the column that says FY24, our sale of electricity minus our expenses, our capital outlay, our debt services, we run on very, very thin margins for the electric department. And your third question to us was, what are our strategies? What do we do to help customers? We definitely do that. So we're in the process right now of a utility bill redesign. We're asking for customer input. We've got some, it actually starts this week, our internal focus group on the bill redesign. It's going to have graphs and charts and be much more user-friendly than the current bill, which has not been changed in over 20 years. We are going through a website redesign with Nathaniel's group. We're just going to make it more visible, ease of information for customers to find. We continue to have the bill backer and the bill stuffer program. All of those are built around educating our customers on consumption. There's the town newsletter, which includes information about the bills and the usage and consumption. The electric master plan, obviously that is, we are ensuring the health of the electric system, and we want to make sure customers are aware of that. There will be an announcement very soon about a push for energy audits, which we have always offered, but we have a campaign coming up for energy audits. And also on the town's website, there's a new tool I'd love for each of you to look at. It is basically a self-serve energy audit. So you can go in and plug in information about your home, the size of your home, your appliances, the age of your appliances, and what you get back is basically an energy audit of tips and things that you can do. What do you leave your temperature, your thermostat set on? How can you adjust that and affect your bill? So these are going to be things that are out there for customers. And again, with Nathaniel's help, we're going to be doing a big push to get that information out to the public. Just put that on the website yesterday, I believe. And then I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? As always, outstanding presentation. Thank you, Ann. Great.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Sims, council members. It's good to see you all again. My name is Craig Brown. I'm here to discuss the electric rate study for fiscal year 26. So I work at 1898 & Co., which, if you're not familiar, is the consulting division of Burns & McDonnell Engineering Company based out of Kansas City. So we work at a 12,000 employee engineering firm where we focus more on the non-design and construction side, so cybersecurity, financial advising, enterprise technology, et cetera. I come to you with over 25 years experience in consulting. Over 20 of that has been focused on electric rates, primarily for municipal utilities and electric cooperatives. I have clients all the way across the country, but I do have a lot focused in North Carolina and multiple NCEMPA members. But I also do some investor-owned utility work around rate cases and serving as an expert witness for rate studies. So I like to start these presentations to go over, what is the process we go through in a rate study, and talk about what's significant, what we did for you this year. So it's kind of a three-step process where step one is to do a financial planning study or a financial forecast. And that's where we take your projection of revenue under existing rates to look into the future, how much your current rates are going to generate, what does your upcoming budget look like, and what is your capital plan and how will that be financed. We'll develop all that into a 5-year financial forecast that'll tell us what the overall rate adjustment needs to be. Step 2, which we only do about once every 5 years, is a cost of service study. And that's really more about allocating costs to the different customer classes to make sure that all the different classes are recovering their equitable share. And as we found out, we did that last year, and your classes are quite well aligned. And then we do rate design, which we do every year, which is updating the rates of a certain percent increase in rates. How should that be spread? And that decision is made, and then we develop the actual rate components to recover the revenues we need. So just an update on the financial forecast. So Clayton continues to have strong growth, primarily from the residential sector. It's consistently been over 4% per year in the number of customers. It jumped to over 8% last year with the addition of some of these new large developments. So we continue to build that in and expect that to continue based on development plans, but keeping it lower in the 3 to 5% range. On the right tab is the forecast of kilowatt hour sales. And you'll notice it's a fairly big jump starting in 2026, and you'll notice the top bar, or the red block, is the coincident peak class, which is your largest customer class. And that's with the addition of the new wastewater, or the water treatment plant coming online. That's going to be a significant electric load for the city. I want to talk a bit about your biggest expense, or your biggest line item, obviously, is the power supply you purchase, or the kilowatt hours that are brought to the system. And as an all requirements member of NECEMPA, as your power supply agency, they manage that for you, and essentially you have a rate structure similar to being a wholesale customer of Duke. So around 10 years ago was when the decision was made to take all the NECEMPA assets and sell it back to Duke and essentially become that wholesale customer. With that, there was some residual debt involved that wasn't part of the purchase price, and that debt defeasance was spread over 10 years. 2025 is the end of those payments, so that excess debt when that transition was made is gone now. And there were some options with how a reserve fund was spread back to the cities. There was different options that went through, ranging from getting a lump sum payment of that, but having a 6.5% rate increase this year, and then lower ones in the future, versus option 3, which was 3.5% rate increase this year and plan on 4.5% down the road. Through some discussions back and forth, it was voted on. Option 3 was accepted, which is kind of spreads that payment out, but has a lower increase this year. We did some analysis on this, and we found this is the best option for the town of Clayton as far as the overall impact on rates. Just a bit more on the new water treatment plant. So this will, when it comes online in January 2026, will be your biggest customer. It's about a 2 megawatt load, but interestingly, it'll also have its own backup generation on site. And it's going to have 3.5 megawatts of generation. And what that's going to give you the ability to do is what's called peak shaving. So your NECEMPA bill is wholly based, or primarily based, on what the town's load is at the time of the Duke coincident peak, or CP. And if you know when that peak is coming and you can turn your generators on, that means you're taking less from them. So this is going to should have positive impacts on the city going forward. As far as the forecast, we've built in some of this load as far as being a customer, but we haven't overly counted on that impact on reducing the power supply bill for this time, since we don't know exactly how it's going to operate yet. As far as your capital improvement plan, again, it's a lot of expansions for underground development is primarily the drivers. You have the new operations facility, which the electric utility is sharing 30% of. And then you have some larger projects in there in 2027, like the Main Street conversion from Robinson to Smith. The city plans to fund this through additional debt financing, like you did last year. There was $6 million in debt issued. So when you have bigger projects like this and the investment is lumpy and it spikes up and down, that makes it very difficult to fund all those projects through rates. And seeing as how a lot of these projects are long-term projects, it makes sense to spread that out over more years and not recover them all from the customer base in 1 year. So the plan is to continue to use debt as a tool so long as your financial metrics on coverage continue to be met. So this kind of shows your revenue requirements under existing rates. So compared to a few years ago, the power supply bill is larger than was anticipated. So that's putting pressure on rates. We have updated this for the preliminary fiscal year 2026 budget, which is actually an improvement over what you saw a month ago when I presented at a workshop. So that has actually brought things down a bit. But you'll see the bar charts do exceed that red line, which is your current revenue. So eventually there are rate increases that need to happen. So when we decide what does a rate increase need to be, once we develop the revenue requirements, your operating budget, your capital plan, we'll work through some scenarios to find that optimal blend of cash versus debt that keeps rate increases as low as possible. But we're driven by 3 key financial metrics, and that's operating cash balance, or minimum days cash on hand, with a goal of 120 days, or about a third of the year. Debt service coverage, which is a requirement of 1.50. And then a new one that we're looking at this year is the operating ratio, which compares operating revenue to operating expense plus depreciation. And that's kind of a measure of continuing to reinvest in your system with rate revenue to make sure you're outpacing the depreciation expense. As you can see, you're okay on debt service coverage now, but quickly go below on the cash metrics and the operating ratios. And this would be if there were no rate increases in the forecast. So our proposal on what we can do to bring those metrics back up to bring everything within target, or shall I clarify, the days cash on hand and the debt service coverage within target, would be a 2% rate increase for this upcoming fiscal year, which you're voting on. And then the forecast is actually 3% going out from there. If you recall, a month ago when I presented at the board workshop, that was 4% or 3.5% in the forecast period. So through, Todd Melton and Robert's work on the fiscal year 26 budget and kind of doing that zero-based budgeting approach and not just adding to what was last year, it's actually a lower projection of O&M expense compared to what we had initially. So that's why that 3% is shown in the forecast period instead of the 4 and 3.5. Still 2% this year, and that's really the only one that's official or we're asking you to take action on. One other comment, I mentioned that operating ratio is a new metric. The goal of that is 1.25, and we're not there yet even with this plan. So since that's going to take some further discussion on how aggressive you want to be to get to that 1.25 ratio. And that's just knowing that's going to take additional rate increases to get there. So just a summary compared to last year. So in last year's study, we projected a 2% for this coming fiscal year. That 2% is held. We were projecting continued 2% last year, but with the primarily driven by the increases in the NECEMPA bill and expanded capital plans, that's where it's bumped up to 3%. But still, in my opinion, compared to some other utilities I look at, quite manageable to keep those in smaller incremental increases as opposed to pushing them off and then ending up with a 10% increase in 1 year. So again, only asking for fiscal year 26 for this year. That use of debt financing continues to be a good tool for the utility to be able to attack those large capital projects with less impact to the residents. And again, I noted it's going to take additional rate increases to meet that operating ratio metric in the future. Just a quick touch on rate design. So as I noted, we did a cost of service study last year that noted that we didn't need any rate adjustments that are different for each class. So every class is projected to receive that same 2% rate increase and no big structural changes to rates. So this is what that looks like for the main classes. So For the most part, customer charges are staying the same. So any adjustments, that 2% was put into the energy charge or the demand charge. So if you're looking at residential, still a $21 customer charge, and the energy charge goes up from 13.45 cents to 13.76 cents. And similar adjustments to the other commercial classes. And again, just like to show what the impact on a typical residential bill is. Typical bill user in your community is about 900 kilowatt hours per month. So that would see their bill going from 142.05 to 144.84, or an increase of $2.79 per month. And so that's right at that 2% level. And again, that breaks down to about a 9-cent increase per day. This just shows the actual rates just for documentation of the other classes, things like the lighting, the poles. But again, all these are going up by 2%. So with that, I'll open it up. Any questions or discussion?
Any questions from council? That's it. All right. Oh, hang on.
Thank you for that presentation. It was electrifying.
Well, appreciate that. That woke us up a little bit. All right. All right. Anybody else? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mayor Pro Tem, while we've got Craig here, Craig, if you got a second.
Yeah.
I know you guys heard from Man Game earlier regarding the metrics and stuff. Craig, you say you work with a lot of our other communities, even just right here in the Nakempa family. With the high bills increases and the issues, or the high bills in the early part of this year from the North Carolina, are you seeing that? Were you seeing that from the other North Carolina communities, or is that?
Yeah, anytime there's a cold snap like that, and I really think, like Ann said about the heat pumps, like your low temperatures don't get that cold very often, so most of your residents never go to those heat strips. And like I said, when you suddenly do that, and it's a combination of running way more often and 3 to 4 times the number of kilowatt hours for the same amount of heat, that's I think the biggest reason why you're seeing those impacts. So I think you've done a good job of tracking it down and identifying that this was not an increase in rates, this was an increase in usage. But yes, this is consistent across other areas of North Carolina as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for the question, Rich. Next up, we have fiscal 2026 budget survey by Robert McKay.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm happy to present our budget survey results. This is the 4th year of the budget survey. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out and acknowledge our communications director, Nathaniel Shelton, for coordinating the survey as well as compiling the results. So without his assistance, we wouldn't have been able to put all this together. So we had a little over 2,000 survey responses. You can see the red bar is for fiscal year 2026. A little over 1,100 were town limits, followed by 700, a little over 725 there for the ETJ. Next were people that play in Clayton, 718 responses, followed by those that work here, 355. And then this next slide shows ownership. 86% of the people that responded own their home versus 14% that rent. And the breakdown in terms of their how long they've been residents. The largest category there is in between that 2 and 10 year mark, followed by more than 20 years. And the next thing here breaks down this household size. And as you can see, the household size between 2 and 4 basically comprises 75% of the makeup of that distribution. The order of importance, these categories pretty much align with our strategic plan. The people that responded, again, we're looking at the red bars here for 2026. Public safety was number 1 at 5.6, followed by transport and also economic stability and growth. Those were both at 5.6, so they're basically tied there. Second most important item for the people that responded was transportation and infrastructure, followed by parks and rec and economic sustainability. In terms of tax dollar spending, kind of followed very closely to that. Public safety being number 1 at 20, followed by transportation and infrastructure at 18. There was a tie between economic stability and growth and parks and rec at 13. And we move into what was important under the cultural arts questions. The top 2 there were family-friendly experiences, followed by concerts. And some of the comments that people made, takeaways there, I'm not going to read them all, but there was expansion of live theater, music and performance of arts, support for local artists and cultural diverse programming, and some calls there for better dining, nightlife, and healthy restaurant options. The next area was economic stability and growth, and the most important item there was the construction of infrastructure, improvements to support new and expanding businesses, followed by promotional initiatives for downtown businesses. Some of the comments there were tied to slow down or halt growth until infrastructure can catch up, reinvest in existing properties and buildings instead of building new developments, and then make developers pay full impact fees and reduce the financial burden on residents. On the environmental sustainability section, resources to support community forest efforts was the top most important item, followed by stormwater runoff and collection improvements. Some of the comments there were related to preserving green spaces and woodlands, reducing utility costs, and improving infrastructure, as well as holding developers accountable for their environmental impacts and require greater contributions for conservation efforts. Moving into the library arena, the top most important topic there was additional engaging programs for children and teens, followed by access to more books, and kind of a tie there between the literacy programs and more learning opportunities for adults and seniors. Some of the comments there were adding a second branch or building a new library, expanding the book collection, and also improving programming for more staff-led events, author talks, STEM classes, and story time. You get in the Parks and Rec section, overwhelmingly, most important item there was the maintenance and renovation of existing greenways, parks, and facilities, followed by new park and greenway construction and completing the existing greenway connections. Some of the comments there were related to adding and maintaining more field space for soccer, tennis, and other sports, primarily focused on youth and adults, and enhancing and preserving our greenways, trails, and natural spaces with better maintenance, cleanliness, and connectivity. We get into the transportation and infrastructure. Pretty much neck and neck with the maintenance of roadways at 80% and improvements to existing roadways at 78%, followed by constructing new sidewalks, paths, and pedestrian crossings. Some of the topics there, we're expanding and repairing our existing sidewalks, making pedestrian safety improvements, synchronizing traffic lights and improving intersections to ease congestion, and then prioritizing infrastructure upgrades before allowing new developments. You get into the vibrant and accessible downtown. Most important item there with respondents was to repurpose unused or underutilized downtown spaces, followed by parking. We all know parking's been a hot topic over the last few years. And then adding more festivals and events, that was just as important as additional parking capacity. Some of the comments there were, again, parking remained the biggest barrier to visiting downtown, wanting more spaces, paving, and better signage. Having more diverse family-friendly restaurants and entertainment options downtown. And also residents want to preserve the small town charm while repurposing unused or rundown properties. When we get into the special events, the Harvest Festival was by far the most popular, followed by the Clayton Christmas Parade, and then the Downtown Concert Series and annual Christmas tree lighting in Christmas Tree Village tied there. So we had some open-ended responses. There were about 787 of them, and I think Nathaniel compiled those down in the top 10. You'll see there, I'm not going to read them all, but traffic congestion, unsafe intersections, rapid residential development outpacing our infrastructure, investment in parks, greenways, and recreational amenities, need for more police and fire staff resources. The final thoughts there, I think the big takeaway here is that the residents' priorities are in alignment with our strategic plan. That makes things a little easier, aligns better with our budget priorities and supporting our strategic plan. I also want to point out that the budget survey is currently available on the town's website under the budget engagement page. So that's out there for anybody, the viewing public, or anybody to go out there and look at it. So other than that, any other questions related to the budget survey or results? I'll be happy to.
Any questions, comments? Council? I'll make a quick comment. I just thought it was funny that recently here, we try to step up our, as far as inspections, and on social media, individuals posted saying that we were, trying to kick old little ladies out the homes and everything like that. But in the survey, it just noted that they wanted us to address properties that are run down. So it goes to show you social media don't necessarily line up with the people's values. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Next on the list, we have Chief Raines. That's right. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, David Raines, Fire Chief. Last minute addition, just to bring y'all up to speed on some good news we've got. With the completion and the opening of the Ranch Road extension, some of our neighbors in the Little Creek Church Road, Hood Farm Road, Creekside Drive may be eligible for reduction in their homeowner's insurance as a result of a lower public protection classification. So Clayton is a 2/9, meaning that anyone within 5 miles of a fire station, Clayton Fire Station, is a 2. Those beyond 5 miles, but within 6 miles, have a 9, and then those outside 6 miles basically are recognized as having no fire protection at all. And so with the opening of the Ranch Road extension, we're cutting a lot of approximately 1 or more miles out of our response to these property owners now. And so with that, a lot of those in the 5 to 6 mile range or distance are now going to be in the 5 miles or less district from fire station number 2. So what they'll need to do is reach out to their homeowner's insurance company and inquire about that rating. We didn't improve our rating overall, but because of their proximity to fire station 2, their rating may have improved anywhere from some may be a 10, that's going to be a 9 now, and some that were a 9 will be within the 2. So in order to assist with that, we'll be working with the PIO's office and doing some social media posts, maybe some media release on that about how they can reach out and understand whether they can expect to see a decrease in their homeowners insurance. So thank you, guys. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
So I love it. So just to kind of sum that up, basically, I'm getting raw basics here. The Ranch Road extension is basically going to put more money back in some people's pockets.
It is, and that's very important. But for me, the thing that's even more important is a faster response time for the fire department.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
Could you share the statistic you shared with us in the work session about for each minute?
Yes, ma'am.
Compression?
So when we look at cardiac arrest, when your heart stops beating without effective CPR taking place immediately, your survivability is reduced by 10% for every 60 seconds that CPR is not being done. So if we look at that prior to the extension being opened, we're coming 42 to 70, going all the way down to Boylan Street at Wendy's to having to get back up over to that area, right? We're cutting out over a mile of travel, which comes down to more than a minute, depending on traffic, could be 2 minutes. So survivability chances are higher. Confining fires to the object or room of origin or there, so that, you know, we're putting water on the fire quicker, we're putting hands on chest quicker for CPR, we're defibrillating quicker, so our survivability rates are improved that way. Yep.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody else? Good. Okay. Next, for under other business, informal discussion and public comments, please come forward. If you have any public comments, please state your name and your address and keep it to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the Town Council. First of all, in regards to a major discussion had tonight about the approval of the most recent project, I want to give my personal congratulations to Mr. Porter Casey, who had the fortitude to stand up against this ill-advised project. I was quite surprised personally that this was approved. I know that I disagree at times with other members of the council. It's my prerogative, and it's your prerogative to act the way you do. But I will say that Ms. Archer in particular, it seems like every project that comes along that varies from the major from the general proposition, we find a reason to say, well, it's okay. And I keep on repeating myself over and over again. I know we're going to have this conversation for as long as we know each other, okay? But the thing is that if you don't have a standard that you stick to, even though it has to be a little flexible, you have no standard at all. And that's just a fact. So I fundamentally disagree with the fact that we've approved this, because I think from what I can see of this project, the way it actually came out, it's another situation where we have put lipstick on a pig. We did this with the project on Vincent Road. That was an ill-advised project. That project is going to be a disaster. We didn't even know at the time that that was approved, that there was another a project being done by another community just down the road. The traffic situation is going to be a disaster. However, on a point of agreement, because occasionally we do agree with all the council members, especially Mayor Pro Tem, the current bill pending in the North Carolina House 765 is an absolute disaster. And I personally have written to both of my representatives in the House and in the State Senate to complain about it and to urge that they oppose it, because as much as I can disagree with the things that you do here, I get a chance to talk to you. I get a chance to be heard. And whether or not you agree with me or not, you're listening at least, and hopefully taking into consideration some of the things that I'm saying. They will never do that. The least governed or the people who are closest to the being governed are the best. So while I disagree with you vehemently on this last decision, thank you. Thank you for being here and being able to do it, because at least the governing that I'm experiencing is happening close to home for me. And I get a chance to express myself, as I said, and I recommend that all my fellow members of our community in Clayton write letters, send emails, call, make a pain in the neck out of yourself. It's not always the most comfortable place to be. When I'm doing it, and so other people can do it too. So be a squeaky wheel, be the bad penny that keeps on coming back, but be heard. So I wanted to thank you all for that, and I wanted once again to thank you, even though I disagree with you, especially you, Andrea. Thank you for your service. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll let you get on with your night. So I have to get on with mine too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I address that just for a second? I want to thank you. First of all, you're not a bad penny. I want to correct that. And I would like to say you're here for almost every meeting, and I commend you for that, because you don't know what goes on unless you're watching it live stream or after it happens. So thank you for coming, and I thank you for reaching out to your elected officials to voice your opinion on this bill. And I would strongly use this opportunity to encourage our citizens to follow your lead. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, with that being said, I close public comments and open comments up for council.
Just want to make a real quick comment. This upcoming Thursday, May 8th, digress a minute. A few months ago, we approved the opportunity to set up a trash trap, which is a trash collection device that is set in streams that feed into larger tributaries, which eventually feed into the sound and in the ocean. But anyway, that trash trap unveiling is going to be this Thursday, May 8th at 5:30. It's going to be placed at the Little Creek. It's going to be along the Greenway. The address is 715 South Fayetteville Street. So it's going to be right across Highway 70 near the oil change place. It's going to be at 5:30. It's going to be this Thursday. We'd appreciate people in the community to come and attend that unveiling, and then subsequently, it's going to need to be cleaned out about once a month. So we're looking for municipal groups, Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops, civic groups to volunteer to help with that. That's a great environmental contributing feature to our community. We're the first ones in Johnson County to have it, and so we need to be proud of it from an environmental standpoint. So if you can join, please come out that night.
Anybody else? So I do got two quick comments. Number one, I want to thank staff and all council members up here. What people don't realize is this job has a lot more to it. They've been here since 12 this afternoon. It is now 8 o'clock, and most of the, if not all these individuals up here have regular jobs, so I commend them for all that they do. I am going to come, even though I don't need to. Councilwoman Andrea is a big girl, so she don't need me to come to her defense. But with that being said, it's believe it or not, harder sometimes to say yes than it is to say no. Councilman Casey was brought up as far as saying no. Believe it or not, I don't know what the mic or whatever, but I said no also. But one thing I can say since I've been on here for these 4 years, regardless if we say yes, regardless if we say no, each and every one of these individuals to put a lot of time in as far as researching these. What people don't understand is that we have to be careful even in the context of saying no, because sometimes we can get sued. When we say yes, we also understand the implications of it as we continue to be such a growing town. When we talk, and that's why, again, I'll reiterate with the Bill 765, all of those things that Councilwoman and Roof, also Councilwoman Roof and Councilperson Porter, we're doing with the applicant in those negotiations is extremely important. I always argue about this.
If Joe Smith has 2 acres and he builds 2 houses, nobody says anything. If Acme Builder has 50 acres and builds 50 houses, everybody has a fit. The problem with that is Acme Builder and Joe Smith are the same thing. They are the same thing. They have the same rights. So we have to be careful. I know we don't like building, believe me. I was here in 2008 when Clayton was 8,000. I'm still here when Clayton is at 32,000. So keep in mind, it's a balancing act. We could be the other way. What does the other way mean? Not growing at all. We could be going where there ain't nothing but a ghost town. There is no in between. The mayor, Jody McLeod, says it to me all the time. He says, you're either growing or you're dying. Which one do we want to be on? With that being said, is anything else come before this council?
I had one comment, just since we were getting on this topic. For anyone listening or watching regarding tonight's application, please Google what was previously approved for that location to be built tomorrow, if they so wanted, and then decide if you think you would prefer to have that or what we voted on tonight.
Thank you.
I don't know. I agree with that, but I mean, they had other site plans that they obviously considered because they were shown.
Alrighty, that was already.
They were shown, but they didn't choose that.
All right. We already deliberated that. So with that being said, other than what we've already approved or not approved, is there anything to come before this council? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone.